Yo, what is up, guys? As promised, Venruki here with another guide for y'all. Today I'm going to be going over Fire Mage. Comparing all of the mage specs right now, Fire is by far my favorite. I'm going to be going over just a few things. I'm going to go over the talents, the honor talents, a little bit about the artifact ability, ideal ways to burst, how to do consistent damage, and some of the new survivability tools that we've gotten. To start things off, we will be looking at the talents that we have been given. The first row of talents is regular talents. There's three options: Pyromaniac, Conflagration, and Firestarter. I like Pyromaniac and Firestarter. The reason I've been playing Firestarter more is because it feels like I'm trying to do a lot of swaps onto targets, and a good way to start rolling your crits and to get some initial burst is by getting a big fireball. And one way to do that is to make sure that it always crits. So if you go in and you get like a Dragon's Breath Sheep and you're bursting someone down who is at high HP, Firestarter is great for sort of getting them down early, getting some of that extra burst in. Pyromaniac is also nice. It just gives you more consistent hot streak procs. The 30 talents, looking through Shimmer, Cauterize, and Cold Snap. I think Cauterize is one where you can just X out. I don't think it's very good at all. Shimmer is basically the only thing I've been playing on all mage specs, and it makes it so, I'll actually show you, it makes it so you can cast while you blink, which is really strong. So you can see I can cast a fireball and I can shimmer and it will keep going. So that is good for not only getting off damage to avoid being interrupted, but it's also really good for getting polymorphs. So if you're casting a polymorph on a healer and they run behind the pillar, you can blink and you'll end up getting the polymorph a lot of the time. So I think Shimmer is the best talent. It just period. Cold Snap is going to be good in some situations. It gives you 2 charges of Ice Block, and it also makes it so your Ice Block heals you. So similar to the old regen block glyph. Cauterize, like I said, don't think is very good. 45 talents, I've mostly been playing in counter slow. Rune of Power can be really good burst, but it's annoying to put down and just feels like an unnecessary amount of casting for a minimal gain or reward. Mirror Image is another one of those talents that could be good in duels. In a duel where you need to rush someone down as fast as possible, Mirror Image might be an option, but I haven't been playing it at all. Mostly just playing with that in Counters Flow, making sure I try to burst with the 5-stack in Counters Flow, which is what we did last expansion as well. Moving on to the 60 talents, we have Blast Wave, Flame On, and Controlled Burn. I think Blast Wave is actually really good. It does decent amount of damage. It also puts up a 70% snare, which is one of the only snares Fire Mage have right now besides our Flame Strike. So definitely an option. I think it'll be good for getting sheeps. So like Blast Waving a healer into sheep. It's not something I've been playing around a lot with, but I do think there is some merit for the ability. Mostly just been playing Flame On, and what Flame On does is it resets your Fire Blast charges. So you can use 2 Fire Blasts, get a Pyro, and then if you need to again, you can Flame On and you get another Fire Blast, and you can keep rolling those crits. So very, very important, and it's one of the things I've been playing mostly. 75 talent is an interesting choice, going from Double Nova, really, really strong, Ring of Frost, which is also really strong, and Ice Flows. I think this is very situational. I wouldn't be able to tell you which situations each one's best. Against Resto Druids, I'd probably end up speccing Ring of Frost most of the time, so you can Dragon's Breath into Ring of Frost. Ring of Frost is also just nice because it opens up a 3rd tree for you. Not only do you have Fire Tree, Arcane Tree with polymorphs, obviously, you now have Ring of Frost. So if you DB and you get interrupted on polymorph, you can still do the Ring of Frost. So Ring of Frost is still very strong. Ice Flows, of course, allows you to run cast. Then one of the things about Ice Flows, when you combine it with Shimmer, it gives you a lot of mobility while you're casting and channeling your damage. So definitely a good option. And then of course, if you want, you can go with a Double No as well, which is situationally good. For 90 talents, I haven't really been playing Flame Patch. Haven't really been playing Living Bomb at all, mostly just the unstable magic. I've been casting a lot of fireballs. As I go through some of the talents later on in this video, you'll see a lot of Fire Mage is casting those fireballs. It's a big part of your damage, which I really like. It's a heavy hitting ability. And the unstable magic just gives it a 25% chance to explode, dealing 50% additional damage. So 1 in 4 chance of doing a tremendous amount of extra damage. I like it a lot. The only thing you have to be careful with is it breaking your polymorphs. Lastly, we have the 100 talents. We have Meteor, Cinderstorm, and Kindling. I've mostly been playing with Meteor, just a little bit of extra burst. Say if a rogue stuns your target, you can drop a Meteor on them, or you have a Windwalker on your team and you stun it, or whatever have you. You Dragon's Breath the target and you want to burst it. Meteor is great for that. I think Kindling also has some merit. If you don't feel like you're getting a lot of value out of Meteor, Kindling is just going to help you regain your combust faster. And because of that, I do think it's a viable option as well. Cinderstorm, haven't been playing it, but it's one of those talents that could be used well in BGs. All right, guys, next up, we're going to take a quick look at the honor talents. The first tier, we have Gladiator's Medallion, Adaptation, and Relentless. Out of the 3 options, I think primarily going to be going with that Gladiator's Medallion, just having a trinket. It's nice for when you need to get CC or when you need to get burst. You can just get out of a Silence or a Polymorph or a Fear. So that's what I've been using primarily, just the good old-fashioned PvP trinket. I think sometimes Relentless is going to be really strong as well, especially if you decide you want to play, like, if you're getting stunned a lot, if you're fighting against like a rogue or something like that, you're constantly getting stunned, you can get a lot of value out of Relentless, so that's definitely a good option. Adaptation, something I haven't really been using at all. But yeah, Relentless and Gladiator's Medallion for the most part. Tier 2, Train of Thought, damage increased by 15% after being attacked will cancel this fact. So basically, if you get to stand still and turret, this ability is really good. The one I normally go with is the Mind Quickness, which is just 6% haste. Lastly, we have Initiation, so if someone's above 80% health, increases your crit chance on them by 30%. It's actually really strong, especially in duels, I find. So what you can do is, like, an example would be if I wanted to Sheep Aramu, I had Initiation, and I could line up, like, with my Combust, a Meteor, big Fireball, and a Phoenix Flames, and all of them would hit at the same time. They would all register as being above 80%, and they would end up just going down to like 40% health right away. So I think Initiation is situationally good. Could be good if you're playing comps like Rogue Mage and you're just constantly bouncing around targets. But I think overall you're going to get the most value out of that haste. It's going to help you get Fireballs off more and Polymorphs off more. Next up, we have Netherwind Armor. Reduces the chance you will suffer a crit by 15%. I feel like this could be really good if you're being just like tunneled down and you're having a hard time surviving. This is like the most defense you can have against like melee teams. Against casters, Prismatic Cloak is really strong. Normally, like we said earlier, we play with Shimmer, so we get 2 charges of Blink. Prismatic Cloak makes it so you're immune to spells for 1.5 seconds. That means you're immune to Polymorph, you're immune to Pyroblast, you're immune to Shadow Word Death. You can just immune spells, and I feel like there's a huge room, like there's a huge potential to outplay your opponent, which is really strong. So Prismatic Cloak is what I normally play with. Against teams that have like a melee, like say I'm playing against 2 melee and like a shaman or something like that, Burning Determination can also be really strong. What it is after you get interrupted, you're immune to interrupts for 8 seconds. So say you cast a Polymorph and you get kicked on it, now you can just spam cast Fireballs over and over and over and over. Vice versa, if you get kicked on a Fireball, now you can just spam cast Polymorph. So I think Burning Determination is also an incredible option. And that's one of the cool things about the talents is a lot of options and variety and different builds you can run. With Temporal Shield, Dense Ice, and Kleptomania. Kleptomania is exceptionally good. It makes it so your spell steal has a 15-second cooldown, which sounds kind of weird, but it makes it so you dispel every hot or every buff that person has. So if you're fighting against a team, so I'll give you some examples. When I fight a Resto Druid team, I pretty much always play Kleptomania, because when I push in and I get a Dragon's Breath Sheep or a Dragon's Breath Ring of Frost on the Druid, I can just, any target we're bursting, remove every single hot, every single buff he has. So if he has 5 hots up, he has double rejuve, and whatever hots Druids have, they're just all gone immediately. So really, really powerful. I love using Kleptomania, situationally very good. More of a defensive talent. Temporal Shield, I think, is really strong. It's just like it was in Mists of Pandaria. You put up a shield, after 4 seconds, all the damage you've taken, it gets healed back. So let's say your healer gets CC'd, you're at full HP, and they're bursting you really hard. You pop your Temporal Shield, they bring you down to 20% HP. Once the 4-second shield expires, you just get brought back up to full. So definitely really strong. And then Dense Ice could be good against teams that, if you're fighting like Warrior Rogue or something like that, I don't know, Warrior Death Knight, Warrior Windwalker Monk, you might get a little bit more value out of Dense Ice than you would Temporal Shield, because it does have a lower cooldown when you use Temporal Shield, 45-second cooldown. When you use Dense Ice, it's a 25-second cooldown, so it definitely can be good as well. All right, next up we have Tinder, World in Flames, and Flare Up. I almost always play Tinder, and the reason I like it is because it makes it so you have a fast cast Fireball that deals additional damage. And yeah, so every 8 seconds you get a Fireball that does 30% more damage with a 50% reduction in cast time. So you can see it's really, really fast cast Fireball, and it hits really, really hard. That one hit him with Unstable Magic for around 350,000 damage. So definitely really good, and it just works nice in your rotation to be able to get like a casted nuke off every 8 seconds if you need to. Obviously you can just spam cast Fireballs if you want, but the Tinder makes it really nice and convenient every 8 seconds. Next up, World in Flames. There was a Flame Strike build earlier. I'm not going to talk about it too much because it did get nerfed a lot, but it is something that can work in BGs. I'll show you the rotation of it a little bit later, but it makes it so your Flame Strike has a 3-second reduced cast time. Normally Flame Strike is, let me open up my thing really fast. Sorry, I was not prepared. Just like whoever Illidan's talking to. But yeah, normally Flame Strike is a 3.5-second cast, so with World in Flames it becomes 0.5-second cast, is that right? Am I crazy? Like, I guess, yeah, it's a really fast cast. And then of course the last option is Flare Up. Using Fireblast on a target not afflicted by Ignite will refund the charge, so I guess it's really good for just being able to spam out a lot of Fireblasts. I don't really like Flare Up that much. Tinder is my preferred option just because, like I said, I like getting off that casted reliable nuke. The next options are kind of interesting. There's Firestarter, Flame Cannon, and Greater Power Blast. Greater Power Blast we'll talk about first. In Arena, I feel like it's terrible. It's just not that great of a spell. It's just way too long of a cast time to get a lot of value. You might be able to do stuff like, so I could see builds like this working well in like BGs. So playing like Greater Power Blast with Initiation, like we talked about earlier, where if someone is above 80% HP, the crit chance is higher. So when you cast that Greater Power Blast, it has a bigger chance to crit, and you can like nuke someone down really hard. So if in like a BG, you have the opportunity to spam cast over and over and over, you might get some value out of Greater Power Blast. That being said, the Flame Strike build might also be good in BGs, or just the traditional Fireball build, which is what I like. The next option is something called Flame Cannon. Conveniently, the game disconnected, but whatever, we're going to keep going. The next option is Flame Cannon. What Flame Cannon does is, after you've been in combat, once you're in combat, after you stand still for a certain amount of time, I think it's a couple seconds, you get the stacking buff. It stacks up to 3 times, and eventually you have 15 yard increase in your range on your spells. So I think your Fireball goes up to 55 yards. You get 15% bonus damage, and you get 15% bonus stamina as well. And so you let that stack up, and you can like blink and move around a little bit, and then as long as you stand still again, you'll maintain that buff, and it's really good for like being able to plant and cast. So that's another thing that's going to be good in BGs, is just being able to stand still. Works really well. Fireball makes all your spells increase range, so that's normally what I go with. And then the last option is something that just reduces the cooldown of your combustion. I also think this is really good, so this is another thing you can try out if you want. I personally prefer the increased damage you get. Mage, Fire. The last talent is called Firestarter. It makes it so when you cast a Fireball, it reduces the cooldown of your combust by 10 seconds. So if you're in a game, you get to cast a lot of Fireballs. Just even casting 6 Fireballs reduces the cooldown of your combust by half a minute. So it can be very good for getting up those combusts a little bit faster, which is where a big part of your damage comes from. Okay, guys, so now that we talked about the PvP talents and the talents a little bit, we're going to talk about our damage rotation. Like we talked about, we have Tinder, which makes it so we get a fast cast Fireball. We definitely want to take advantage of that whenever we can. In addition to that, a big part of our burst comes from getting good meteors off, but mainly it comes from rotating crits, heating up procs, and instant power procs with your Fireblast and Phoenix Flame. So we got a new ability this expansion with our Relic. For all intents and purposes, it's an instant Power Blast with a 45-second cooldown recharge. It does a little bit more damage than splashes, but that's what it is. It's called Phoenix Flames. And we're basically going to be using our Phoenix Flames and our Fire Blast to complement our Fireballs and our Pyro procs to just continue to roll Pyro procs. So I'll give you a little bit of an example. So even without Combust, so I cast a Fireball, I can cast another Fireball now, Fire Blast, and I get a Pyro, okay? So that ate my proc, but I can cast another Fireball. This is like what you'd basically be doing if you get to free cast. Just keep casting Fireballs, and then you get another Pyro, you can use your Fire Blast, rotate it in. If you want now, you can use a Phoenix Flames and shoot out another Pyro. Now you can cast another Fireball and see if you get a crit proc. You got a crit proc. Now you can Fire Blast, you get another Pyro. And you basically, that's what you do. You just use your Phoenix Flames and use your Fire Blast to supplement your Fireballs, or when you need instant damage, to get out instant damage. Cast another Fireball with one heating up, you can Fire Blast. That's basically what it is, like I said. And then of course you can get into just instant cast damage if you want. So like, say you're playing with like a Windwalker, which is something I like to do a lot, or playing with a Rogue, and your object is just to get as much damage out on like a healer as possible. You literally just, without casting a single spell, literally no spells, you can just drop a meteor, use your combust, Phoenix Flames, Fireblast, Phoenix Flames again, Pyroblast, Fireblast. Then you can use your Flame on to reset your Fireblast, get another Fireblast out, Fireblast again, another Pyro out, Phoenix Flames, get another Pyro out. And I've shot in like, what, 10 Pyroblasts? Then you can cast the last little bit of Fireballs if you want and try to get some more Pyrobrax. But yeah, you just using those abilities properly and making sure, a big part of it, you have to make sure you do, especially when you have Combust up, is you have to make sure that your Pyro hits. So a big mistake I see Fire Mages doing is, what they'll do is, I'll give you an example. So let's say I have an instant Pyro proc. A lot of people don't consider the fact that their Pyro is going to give them a heating up proc. So they'll just like Pyroblast and then they'll instantly use like a Phoenix Flames and their Fireblast again, and they'll kind of ignore that. So that's something you definitely have to keep in mind, is just look for the opportunity, or especially when you have Combust up, just make sure you're taking into consideration that the Pyro you shoot is always going to be giving you a heating up proc. So that means you only need to supplement that Pyroblast with one Fireblast or one Phoenix Flames. And that is essentially how you burst. It's pretty simple. You can do like Dragon's Breath burst too. So stuff like this, like dropping a meteor, Dragon's Breathing them, and then casting like a Fireball with the Phoenix Flames. Fireblast, Pyroblast. And yeah, that's basically how you burst with this build. I promise I wanted to show you another build, and this is the Flame Strike build. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to spec into Conflagration, and that makes it so people that are ignited sort of flare up and do additional damage. They have a 10% chance. Also going to get Flame Patch, and that means when you cast a Flame Strike, it's going to leave like a patch on the ground that burns. And then lastly, the most important talent is going to be that World in Flames talent we talked about a little bit earlier that reduces the cast time of Flame Strike. And this is a build that I think could be really fun in Battlegrounds, especially when you get your Flame Cannon stuck up. So as you can see, you cast a Flame Strike, and this is literally all you do. You don't even use Fireball anymore. You just spam cast Flame Strikes over and over and over and over and over, and the range on it actually gets ridiculously long once you have Flame Cannon stacked up. You can see, like, imagine like I'm on the side of Temple of Kot Mogo, and I'm just spamming Flame Strikes on this guy from across the world. I mean, it doesn't look like I'm doing that much single target damage to him, but imagine 3, 4 people are stacked up, and you still get like instant Flame Strikes. So instead of using like instant Pyros, you use instant Flame Strikes, and you can use like your Combust. I'll show you like how you would burst, I guess. You can still rotate in your Phoenix Flames and your Fireblast. It's kind of cool. It did get nerfed a little bit, but it's one of those builds that I think, like I said, in like large-scale PvP, that could be exceptionally strong. So definitely something to consider. The last things I wanted to talk to you guys about was Fire Mage defense. So a big part of our defense and survivability comes from a few key abilities. Temporal Shield is one of them. If you're not using Temporal Shield, of course, you'll use your Ice Barrier, but Temporal Shield's really, really strong. And basically, like we talked about earlier, the way it works is you're going to pop your Temporal Shield, and when people are sort of bursting into it, you'll get healed up at the end of the Temporal Shield for the damage you took. So getting good Temporal Shields, like you just saw, is going to be key to surviving. Another really important part is our Prismatic Cloak with Shimmer. So one thing Fire Mages have that no other Mage specs have is when you blink, you actually get a heal. So you can see me blink, I actually get Cauterizing Blink, and it is healing me up. So taking advantage of your blink heals is going to be really, really strong, as well as immuning damage. So if you see another mage bursting you really hard with like a Glacial Spike or a big Pyroblast, being able to blink that damage and just sort of immune it, as well as get the heal out of the blink, is going to be really, really, really strong. So yeah, Temporal Shield, Ice Barrier if you need to, but Temporal Shield better. Using Shimmer to sort of get away. And of course, Dragon's Breath is really good for getting CC on a healer, so going for like a Dragon's Breath and getting like a ring out of it, or like a Polymorph if the ring misses, or you can Dragon's Breath Polymorph like I said. It's good for CCing the healer, but in addition to that, it's also really good as like a peel. So if you have 2 melee DPS on you and you're having a really hard time getting away and getting off damage, one thing you can do is just so let's say I have 2 melee on me right now, you can just Dragon's Breath the DPS, and then you can start casting a Polymorph and blink away from them and get the Polymorph on the healer, and that way you've CC'd the DPS off you, and you've also went and got a Polymorph on the healer, which can work really well. Yeah, another thing is making sure you're using your Novas to kite well, so doing stuff like So I have 2 melee on me again over here. Aramu is the healer. I can Nova the DPS and quickly blink over DB and heal the healer, or sheep the healer. Both the melee will still be over there in a Frost Nova, and now you've created this window by yourself where you can get CC on the healer. So just making sure you're consistently getting CC on the healer, taking advantage of your Dragon's Breath, of course using your Ice Block when you need to, using Shimmer as the heal, as well as muting damage with that Prismatic Cloak is the basic tools we have as a Fire Mage to survive. Guys, before we go is, just as we're finishing up this guide, just have fun with Fire Mage. It's a really cool, really mobile spec. It's probably one of my favorite specs in the game right now. Has a lot of mobility, has a lot of utility, has a lot of damage that's really easy to get off. Take advantage of the fact that you can blink cast with Shimmer, so if you want to get off those fireballs, you can blink cast them in the middle of your cast and it doesn't cancel them. Use your power procs, use your combust. Make sure you're using Phoenix Flames and your Fireblast to get off your instant pyros. And yeah, as Hansel would say, just keep burning shit. Use that Dragon's Breath. Burst people down. It's just a really, really fun spec. Oh, another thing, if you guys are wondering what race I would play for a mage, specifically fire, 100% would play Orc or Blood Elf. So those are the only two options I see for Horde. And if you're playing Alliance, you should probably just roll Horde. No, but seriously, I would probably play Human. Yeah, I would play Human, for sure, if I was playing Alliance. If I was playing Alliance. That's it, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the guide. If you guys have any questions, ask them below. If you like the video and you want to see more of these kind of videos, give the video a thumbs up. And yeah, peace out.